Hey everyone, I'm Luis Lopez, host of Atlas Lingue, and this is Season 3, The Language of Culture Online. This week we have a very exciting guest, Kenzo Mizumoto. Kenzo is famous for his fast-paced and brilliantly hilarious short videos on TikTok and Instagram. Born in Brazil to a Japanese-Brazilian family, and living in London for some time now, Kenzo loves poking fun at the unique cultural peculiarities of the UK, debunking Asian stereotypes, and exploring generational differences, always with good fun. We talk about Kenzo's upbringing in Brazil, about how he enjoys the moments when he can teach others about his specific cultural identity, and about the meticulous process he follows to ensure his videos are as funny as they can be. And believe me, they are. So, here's our conversation with Kenzo Mizumoto. Enjoy. So, Kenzo, welcome to the show and thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So, let's start off by just having you talk a little bit about yourself. Could you tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up, and what inspired you to start doing what you do, to start creating content?
Yes, of course. So, hi everyone. I'm Kenzo. I am from Brazil. I was born and raised in Brazil, São Paulo to be more specific. I moved to London around 8 years ago. I came here to study music. I ended up working in the music industry for a while. Yes, but then during the lock, so I play. It's all right. It's all right. I play piano, the piano, guitar, a little bit of bass, and I've tried. Yeah, I tried a little bit. I didn't really enjoy being on the software, like using the software that much. I like more like playing the instruments. Yeah. And then yeah, so I worked in the music industry for a while, actually more in the like business side. Back in 2019, from 2019 to 2021. So when the lockdown happened, like many of content creators that I know nowadays, they actually started during the lockdown as well. And I was kind of bored, and I just wanted to do something online, like create videos or something. I had a few failed YouTube channels that didn't work out, and it's okay. I learned stuff from them. But then I was like, you know what? Let me give this TikTok thing a go. Like like many people did. And yeah, yeah, exactly. And then I just started posting videos for fun, and then I realized that I really liked making those videos and making people laugh, especially during the pandemic and the lockdown. Because everyone was kind of, everyone needed a good laugh. And it's yeah, and from there on, I was just like, you know what, I kind of want to do this for a living, and here I am.
And the
Yeah.
rest is history so far.
So far, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love it. I've been, I've been watching your content for a while now, and I really love it. I mean, all the different aspects of what you touch on in your content, and I mean, one of the things I love about it is your videos where you kind of call out stereotypes of Asian men in movies, especially in like action or martial arts movies. I wonder if we could start with that part of your content. If you could tell me a little bit about like the inspiration behind that, and I don't know, maybe even like what are some of the most ridiculous stereotypes in your opinion that you've seen in movies like these that you display or that you talk about on your content?
Of course. Thanks for liking my videos, man. Honestly, I'm always so humbled when people tell me they enjoy my videos. I'm like, I'm just making this for fun, like whatever happens, happens. But so I made a video called "How Asian Men Are Written in Action Movies." I think you're referring to that one, right? And that was my first proper viral video on Instagram when they started with reels and all of that. And I was like, oh my god, people seem to really like this. And basically, what happened is that I had watched all of the Rush Hour movies with my wife. Yeah, yeah, during the lockdown. She had never watched the Rush Hour 2 or 3, I think. So I was like, let's watch all of them again. And then as we were watching it, I was like, oh my god, like these things happen all the time. And I started, like the action movies in the Asian guys knowing martial arts and all of that, it's like the honor and the family issues, and there's the yakuza and the triads, and all of that. And I was like, this could be a fun TikTok. So yeah, so I just picked my phone and I started like writing down some lines for my script, and I was like, I'm gonna use these and just see what happens. And then and then it kind of did pretty well. Yeah, yeah.
And what are some of these like stereotypes that you find particularly like ridiculous or just kind of like eye rolling, you know?
It's an interesting question though, because it's they when it comes to action movies like that, you do have some stereotypes, but they're not like bad stereotypes per se. They're kind of badass. You know what I mean? It's like if the stereotype is to like be a really good fighter and know martial arts, then yeah, yeah, it's a yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I think for me, the stereotypes when it comes to like Asian guys or just even like Asian people in movies and stuff like that, it's usually the geeky guy in school, the awkward and nerdy guy. I was like, guys, we're tired of this. Come on, it's 2023. Move on. But to be fair, I feel like we're seeing those less and less, which I really enjoy. There's so much more to Asian people on screen, especially in the West, and I'm really enjoying seeing that because growing up, every time I would watch a movie or a TV series, the Asian guy was always the geeky, nerdy guy that didn't know how to talk to girls and stuff like that, or Jackie Chan. So it was either of these two. So in my opinion, yeah, exactly, exactly. And listen, Jackie Chan, honestly, it's so badass. So there's exactly there's nothing bad with that, and I love it. But I like how we're exploring more, like holistic characters when it comes to portraying Asian people on screen, and I think that's yeah, that's really cool.
Love that. Maybe to go a little bit further into that, did you grow up watching movies like these? And I guess I wanted to ask you, like, what are some of your favorites, and like, has your opinion towards them changed over time?
Yeah, of course. I grew up watching a lot of movies like that. Rush Hour, a lot of Jackie Chan, Jet Li movies, um, some Japanese movies as well. And the thing is that I don't think it's necessarily a bad stereotype when they are really badass, and they know martial arts. So it doesn't really bother me. So even nowadays when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's a little bit predictable, but I still find it really cool. And yeah, no, I love action movies, man. I love a good like martial arts movie because I did martial arts, of course, as a kid. My dad, yeah, so I did karate, kung fu, aikido, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Yeah, my dad used to be a brown belt in judo. Yeah, and of course he would put his kids to learn martial arts. So it's just but I really enjoy it. I really enjoy martial arts movies also because like the stunts are just amazing, and I really like that. Yeah. Do you like action movies like that?
I can enjoy them. I'm not like the biggest fan of them in the sense that I don't like follow them as closely, but I can certainly enjoy them when they're on or when I happen to go to the movies and watch them. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I see what you mean. Like, of course, it's cool to see someone be, a badass in that way, right? So, yeah, I can totally understand that. So, I guess moving on. I mean, of course, you mentioned you're from Brazil, right? You're Japanese Brazilian, right? And I know that I lived in Brazil for a year and in Sao Paulo actually, and so like I met Brazil or Brazilian Japanese people there while I was there, and I know that there's a significant population of people of Japanese descent in Brazil, but I wanted to ask you like are there still like stereotypes there even though it's a population that's been around there of course for decades, right? And is there like an issue of being considered like not fully Brazilian sometimes
Oh
when you're
man, that's
there?
a whole how much time do you have?
Oh gosh.
That's the whole thing. But yeah, first of all, that's really cool that you stayed in São Paulo for a while. If you don't mind
Yeah.
me asking, what were you doing there?
Yeah, I was an exchange student. I was at the USP, at the Universidade de
Oh
São Paulo. I
yeah,
was
just
yeah.
just just the best university in Brazil. Like
Yeah, No, yeah, I was there for a year, and yeah, I remember I went to this neighborhood Liberdade several
Yeah,
times, and
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
had Japanese food there, and I don't know, I loved it so much. It was great.
Oh,
So,
that's cool, man. So yeah, my parents actually went to USP,
oh,
So yeah,
okay, cool,
I know it quite well. It's a
awesome.
really well-known university. So the thing is that I feel like, because I'm already like third, fourth generation, right? So my grandparents' generation of Japanese people, they got to Brazil like over 100 years ago. The first ones were like in the early 1900s. Of course, you still have the stereotypes, but I feel like nowadays is a little bit less. I'm not too sure, but I think most of the stereotypes that we have in Brazil about Japanese people, more specifically, because that's what you know, the type of East Asian people that we had there the most. Now we have a lot of Chinese and Korean immigrants, and that's really cool. But my dad he told me, it's like growing up, or even when I was growing up, and my sister, a lot of the stereotypes were around being a good student, being really nerdy and being really good at math, and just getting straight A's, being sort of quiet and shy and all of that. But I find it really interesting because, as like, for example, my parents, they were born and raised in Brazil, so they were different to their parents, so my grandparents, who were, some of them were born in Japan and some of them were born in Brazil. Me and my sister and my brother, we were already like born and raised in Brazil, but like we're like third, fourth generation, and we consider ourselves to be, at least us, I can't speak on behalf of all of the Brazilian Japanese people, but we can relate a lot more to the Brazilian culture than to the Japanese culture. So much so that whenever I go to Japan, even though technically my family's from there, like I look Japanese and all of that. When I go to Japan, I'm like, wow, it's so different. It's so different, it's just like it's the culture, the way people behave, it's just very different. It's just very different. It's not worse, it's not better, it's just very different. And that is something that, if you grow up in Brazil, you kind of shape your personality around that kind of culture. Whereas had I been born and raised in Japan, probably I would have turned out like way differently. So, and let me share a story with you that I find it, I think it's quite cool. So the first time I went to Japan, I was a kid. I don't know how old I was. I was like maybe 10 or 12. I went with my mom, right? But because in Brazil, I was one of the few Japanese people in my school, and I was always surrounded with like non-Japanese people, my friends, and it's just how it is. When we got to Tokyo, at the airport, I was looking around. I was like 12, I was looking around and I was seeing all of those Japanese people, man. And then I went to
Hmm.
my mom and I was like, Mom, everyone looks like us.
Yeah,
It was like, everyone looks like us. What is this? And she just laughed. She thought
yeah,
it was really cute. But yeah, man, it's an interesting feeling. It's an interesting
yeah.
feeling. Have you ever been to Japan?
No, unfortunately, I'd really love to, but yes, no, I haven't. It's on my bucket
Yeah,
list.
if you do have the chance to go, man. It's honestly, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's like nothing you've seen before. It's so different. It's so different.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I must. Great. So, yeah, continuing on with this whole topic about Japanese Brazilian identity, right? I noticed that one of the videos that's on your feed that I really enjoyed was also, I think it was when the World Cup was on, right? That you photoshopped yourself with the Brazilian national
Yeah.
team, and I think I remember you said something like I don't know if there's ever been a Japanese Brazilian in the seleção, right? In the
Yeah.
in the team. So. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that, and then if I remember correctly, like there was some comments about like people discovering that you were Brazilian when you said that, or when you did that video. And like there were all of these comments like, oh, like if you're Brazilian, then speak Portuguese and kind of like prove yourself, right? So I guess I wanted to ask you like, what's the feeling when that happens? Does that happen, often at all, or where people are like, "Oh, you're Brazilian? Well, let's hear you speak Portuguese," because maybe they won't immediately assume that you are by how you look or how you sound?
Yeah, yeah. So that video I made because it was like it was the World Cup, and I kind of I was posting like stories with my Brazilian jersey and all of that. So I was like, let me make a video about this because not a lot of people know that I'm Brazilian, even though I do put like the Brazilian emoji on my bio. I don't think people. I think people kind of forget about that, and it's okay, it's fine. But yeah, I posted that, and because I I I don't know. I never really saw Asian looking people playing football in Brazil cuz yeah, for some reason, I don't know. You do have some. You do have some. Nowadays you have it even more. But in the Brazilian national team, not really. And I was like, you know what? Let me give a small shout out to my Brazilian Japanese friends, like, hey guys, we're here, and make this a fun video. But yeah, no. So in Brazil, no one ever really asks if I'm Brazilian because they know they're so used to East Asian looking people there already that they don't even ask. And to be fair, I only really started to realize that when I moved to the UK. Because when I'm in Brazil with my friends, my family, and everyone, I just speak Portuguese, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, sure, you're Brazilian, whatever." They don't even question. But here, everyone thinks I'm Chinese, and yeah, I find that really interesting. Not even Japanese, but Chinese. Yeah, because I think they have more Chinese people here than Japanese, and I find that really, I found that really interesting because it was the first time in my life. Because I was living in Brazil, so you know but it was the first time in my life that so many people would think that I was Chinese that at some point I was like, wait, hold on, am I Chinese? And I don't know.
Right? Like you actually questioned
Yeah,
it.
exactly. I was like, wait, hold on, am I Brazilian? I was like, wait, what's happening?
What even am I?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay, it's just what they're used to. But I thought that was so interesting, it's like, for example, sometimes I'm just here walking around waiting for my bus, and then I have a random Chinese tourist that is lost, and they come at me like speaking Chinese and asking for directions, and I'm
Right.
like, sorry bro, I don't speak Chinese, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I don't know. And they look at me disappointed, they're like, oh man, come on, it's like I had all of my hopes.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, it's an interesting feeling as well, it's like and then I have to explain to people, it's like, oh, I'm actually Brazilian, and they go like, oh, Brazilian, really, because they are always expecting someone that looks like Neymar, or like people like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like me being Brazilian is the last thing they expect. Also because not many people know that, it's like I was surprised. I thought it was people knew that, like worldwide, that we had a lot of Japanese people in Brazil. But I realized that no, no one knows that outside Brazil or Japan. Uh,
And does it ever get like maybe a little annoying, or just like do you get like tired of like whenever you meet someone new and like having to see how much you have to explain your identity, as you said, like, well, I'm actually
do you know
Brazilian, and
what? Yeah, do you know what? Some
yeah.
people might. I don't. I actually get a
Okay.
little bit excited,
Okay.
because I love seeing people's reactions to it.
Right.
Whenever I say like, "Oh, I'm Brazilian," they're like, "Wait, what? How come?" And
Oh,
then
I
I
see.
explain. I explain the history to them a little bit in like
Oh,
10 seconds. And they're like, "Wow, I had no idea." And I always say like, "There you go, you learned something new today."
right. Oh, I
So
love that.
it's
So you take it as an opportunity to like teach a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It
Yeah.
doesn't take me long. It takes me like 10 seconds, and they always go like, "Oh wow, I had no idea." It was like, and I go like, "Yeah, there you go."
That's awesome.
It's really fun. It's really fun. It's there was this one time I was so I went to Warwick University here for my master's, right? And it was a business school. And it's so interesting because as a business school, they had a lot of Chinese students that were coming from China to study here for a year and then go back and find work there. And it was something like we had 300 people in the class, right? And 80% of them were Chinese. 80% of that class was Chinese. It was crazy. And we're talking about a British university, like business school. And it was, and like 10% was Indian, and the other 10% was like Europeans. Yeah, Europeans, British, and me. I was the
Okay.
only Brazilian there,
Anyone else
And there,
from Latin America or?
no, no.
Oh, okay.
I was the only South American there.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But yeah, it was so interesting because there was this one class when the teacher, where the teacher he was talking about like Brazilian petrol or something, and on the oil industry in Brazil, business
Right.
school stuff.
Petrobras and that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then he was like, "Oh, is anyone in the class Brazilian?" And I go like, me,"
Okay. Yeah.
and I could hear all of the Chinese students turning around and looking at me and like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" And I was like,
Right.
"Yeah, Brazilian here." And then at some point afterwards, I had some of my Chinese colleagues come to me and they were
Mhm.
like, "Dude, no, come on, you're not Brazilian." I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Do you want to see my ID?" And they were like, "Yeah, we want to see your ID." And I showed my ID, and they're like, "What?" So
Wow.
not even they know about it. So it was kind of
Right.
cool to show it to them. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, it's one of those things that like if you are born and raised in Brazil or have been there for some significant time, you end up where you end up learning about, but
Exactly,
otherwise you just
exactly,
don't, right?
exactly,
Wow.
exactly. And that's okay. That's okay. It's like there's so many different diasporas of people around the world, that it's impossible to know all of them. So
Yeah. And eh, can you tell me a little bit more about your experience in the UK? How long have you been there, and what are some like curious, funny cultural differences that you've experienced while there? Because I know I've seen some of your videos where like you kind of talk in a humorous way about how they measure things. Like you did a recent one about like how they measure distances and weight and like stones and pounds and pints and all of that, and how it can get pretty confusing sometimes. So yeah, could you tell me just a little bit more about your experience there and culturally what's been significant or funny or
of
confusing?
course, man. Thanks for asking. It's really different to Brazil. I'm more used to it now because I've been here for almost 9 years now. But it's it's interesting. For two things. First, London. Something that I've learned is that London is not necessarily the UK. The rest of the UK is very different to London. London, I have a feeling that it's its own little hub of multicultural people from all over the world. So it kind of works as a big, yeah, as a big pot. And when you go to other cities in the UK, you realize that it's very different how the way people think, and it's okay. It's okay. For me, the biggest shock when I moved here for the first time was that during winter, they have this thing called the winter savings time. And basically, it gets dark at 4 p.m. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, man, so it gets dark at around 4, and then the sun rises at around like 8.
But for like how many months of the year?
Uh, that's a good question. I want to say
Like during the winter?
4 or 5 months.
Okay. Oh no,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
I think,
terrible.
yeah. Don't quote me on that, but I
No,
think it's
no,
around that. Yeah,
some for a significant time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it gets to people here, even to the British people. Yeah, it gets to them because it kind of makes you a little bit sadder. It gets dark and it's cold. And it's just like, oh my god. But to me, that was really interesting. I'm still not used to it, but there's nothing I can do about that. But also, I don't know, man. I just realized that British people as well, they have their own um, way of communicating things as well. Because
Okay.
in Brazil, you're always chatting to everyone. You're like, "Hey, man, how's it going? Come here. Let's do this. Let's do that."
Yeah.
And I feel like because of the
People are kind of
culture,
very immediately open in Brazil.
yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know if you had that feeling as well. I think
Yeah,
it's just
definitely.
I think it's just South America in general.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
I'm
know
from
what I mean?
Mexico, and people are kind of rather similar,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well. Yeah,
exactly. I think it's the South American, like Central
yeah,
American vibe to it.
of course, yeah.
Whereas I feel like here, usually in cold countries, people are a little bit more minding their own business. I don't know if it's because of the cold or if it's just the culture, and it's okay, it's just different. I To be fair, nowadays I kind of like it as well. Sometimes I don't want to be bothered and I'm just there in my corner, it's like, yeah, okay, just peace and quiet, and that's it.
Yeah, there's an appeal to that as well.
Yeah, there's a balance to be had.
Of course.
There's a balance to be had.
Yeah. I love what you said. Well, I mean, I can relate to what you said about the dark because I lived in Chicago for 2 years. I did my master's there. And similarly, maybe it's not that bad, but in the winter, like in the worst days, it gets dark at like 4:30.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
like, no, no. Like I didn't mind the cold, but it certainly, hit me.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not really used to it,
exactly.
but you kind of have to get used to it, and it's a little bit like, oh, the day's over already.
Yeah. Yes, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about your content and maybe more specifically about like your process, your creative process as you work on it. So I wanted to ask you, how do you usually approach humor in your work? Do you well, first of all, do you find it in your own experiences or things you've been told, perhaps from other people? And do you like build your skits or your situations around a joke or a funny aspect, perhaps something that happened to you? Or does that sort of appear more organically as you construct the situations that you depict?
Yeah, yeah. So usually I base my sketches on life situations or conversations that I have with my wife. Yeah, so I don't really. I do have a process. So basically, I try to come up with ideas every day. It doesn't have to be a full script, just the idea, and then I write them down on a Google Docs file, and I have all of them there as an exercise. I try to come up with something every day. It can be quite tiring. I'm not gonna lie. So
To like force
sometimes,
you to be creative every day for a little
yeah,
bit. Yeah.
yeah, more like an exercise, because
Yeah.
I treat this whole thing as a craft,
Right.
and like any craft, the more you do it, the more you exercise that
Yeah.
specific craft, you get better at it. So that's
Of
how I
course.
see it. I do allow myself to not have many ideas on the weekends, so
Okay.
my brain can think about something else a
Yeah.
little bit.
Disconnect for a bit.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So usually I have an idea and I'm like, oh, I really like this idea. Let me try to develop this a little bit more. And then I write a script, like a rough script. I come up with a few words or lines that I want to put in the script, and then I just put them there. And then I obsess over the script with
Okay.
timing and words because I only
Right.
have a couple like up to 60 seconds
Right.
to have people watch the video, so I have to be really straightforward.
You have to be really
Yeah,
ruthless
yeah,
editing.
but that's me. Other content creators, comedy content creators, they have their own processes and they have
Right. Of
their but
course.
me, I obsess over the script because to me every single line in that video matters. If I have one or two
Right.
lines that are okay, you're just gonna scroll. You're
Right.
just gonna
Yeah.
scroll. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. So
Everything needs to contribute
yeah,
something.
exactly. So every second,
Yeah.
every line of the video has to contribute to something, but that's me. That's me. And once I have the script ready and I have obsessed over it, it's like, okay, then I time myself reading the script to see if it's up to 1 minute. If it's not, I trim it down or change a few words here and there. Sometimes I change words because some words they sound better than others, because of the impact they have. So let's say if I'm talking about school and a subject, instead of saying, I don't know, math, I'm going to say biology because of the, so there's more
Oh,
impact
okay.
to it. I say
I
biology,
see.
so these are things that I think that
Right.
I don't know if people notice that, but to me, it makes sense.
No, but I love that. So like even how the word sounds, it adds to perhaps
Yeah.
like the comedic
Yeah,
effect or to the rhythm
exactly,
of the
exactly.
video.
So
Yeah.
whenever I can switch words, I try to put words that have a lot of B's and P's and K's and T's because of that impact. Uh, and then once the script is ready, I start filming them. I have a green screen that I just put in my living room. I have my little setup with a softbox and my mic, this one. And then it usually takes me around a day, half a day to film, depending on how big the video is. Sometimes I have videos that are 10 seconds, and sometimes I have videos that are 1 minute. And then I'm just there. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like if I have a video with like 3 or 4 characters, I have to change a lot. Whereas if it's one of those videos that is just me and it's like 15 seconds, then it's fine. Then I film it. I just try to get as many shots as I can because you never know if you're gonna need something else later. As I'm filming, I start noticing if I like the vibe or the feel to the lines or to the video and all of that, and I just change. Once that's done, I export everything. I import everything onto my computer and I start editing. I really like editing, by the way. A lot of people don't like editing, but I like editing because to me it feels like did you ever used to play with Legos growing up? Yeah, exactly. So I love Legos, man. I love Legos. I don't play with them that much anymore. But to me, editing videos feels a little bit like Legos. You're just putting something here, something there, and you just put all of them together, and then at the end you have like this finished product.
Wow. I love that. And I'd never thought of editing as like building Legos, but that makes so much sense. And I'm glad you said that because I loved Legos as well.
Yeah,
And yeah, I love editing too. I mean, I'm a sound editor as well. So so it's yeah. I understand what you say. Like some people just don't love it, but I do.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and yeah, it's like your work finally comes to life in that process, right?
Exactly, man, exactly. And then you see all of the clips there, like stacking on top of each other. And you're like, oh, it's like a
Yeah.
Lego, like it's like a little castle.
Yeah. And do you feel like sometimes like people who don't know what's behind all of that perhaps can't fully appreciate like how much painstaking work goes into something that seems
Yeah,
simple,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. But that's with anything, if I'm honest. Yeah, that's with anything. But I do. I am aware of that, and it's okay as long as they like the finished product. As long as I've done my job in making that person enjoy the video, then I'm fine. Because as a sound editor, you have to mix and like equalize and the compressor and all of that. So I got a little bit of that from my audio production background because I did a little bit of that. So it's like, okay, I know. Yeah, exactly. So I know a few things here and there. It's like I know that I have to equalize my vocals a little bit more, and all of that. And I really like it, and I really like picking the soundtrack for my videos as well because I truly believe that a soundtrack can make or break the video. So if you have a funny video, for example, and there's no soundtrack, you're like, there's something missing here, something to make it a little bit more energetic, a little bit more upbeat. And that's when I go and try to find a soundtrack. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the one, that's the one. And then sometimes I try to edit the video according to the soundtrack. But yeah, but I understand that not a lot of people do that because they might not enjoy it as much, but I really do.
Right, and I think that's part of what makes your videos in particular just so appealing and so fun because they you can see all the care that's goes
Yeah,
into
yeah,
them, and as you
exactly.
said in the music, like sometimes you choose like this very dramatic score, and it helps to like accentuate the comedy of like
Exactly.
something kind of silly with the dramatic
And
score behind, which is so much
if
fun.
it's a soundtrack that people know, it kind of adds to the video because people are going to perceive the video as even more of that. So I'm going to give an example. Sometimes I make videos that I'm like super epic and heroic and whatever, like, and then I add anime soundtrack. uh I don't know if you watch anime or not, but like the yeah, so sometimes I watch I add like Attack on Titan soundtrack to these videos that I'm like super heroic, but in a funny way, and it kind of adds to that. And the people that know that that is the Attack on Titan soundtrack, they're like, oh my god, that's the Attack on Titan soundtrack, you know. So it adds a little bit more to them, and I like that when people can spot these things, you know. Not everyone can spot that, of course, but it's just for me as well, you know. It's just for me, so it's yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly. And then once everything's edited, I run it through my test audience, who is my wife. She's I really like it. I really like the feedback she gives me, honestly. So because then I know sometimes if I'm like, babe, the video is ready, can you watch it for me? She's like, okay, cool. And then I see her reaction when watching the video, and I'm like, okay, she's not really paying attention at this bit here, or like this bit is too slow, so I'm gonna chop it off and make it shorter or something. Or if sometimes she has the biggest laugh in the middle of the video, but I need her to have the biggest laugh at the end of the video, so then I go and I change the order, so and then I'm like, okay, can you watch it again? She was like, okay, that's good now, so
Oh, okay. So like her blind
yeah.
reactions are just as important as like perhaps the more prepared
Yeah,
feedback later
yeah,
after watching
exactly,
it.
exactly. Yeah, she
Oh,
helped me
okay.
a lot with that. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. And do you have a video or maybe a couple of videos that you are like particularly proud of, perhaps because they might have done better than you expected, like reached audiences that you didn't expect them to reach, or just like something that you're particularly proud of as a creator?
Oh, ooh, that's a good question. I don't know, man. Maybe I do have a couple of videos that require more effort. When it
Okay.
comes to editing and using the green screen, there's one that I made that I really enjoy, which is it
Uh-huh.
goes a little bit like your parents going to school according to them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it shows
Yeah.
like someone going through the savannah and the desert and like acid rain and just like 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 fighting a cheetah and all of that. And it's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people can relate to because my parents used to tell me that all the time. And then once I
Yeah.
posted the video, I realized that a lot of people can relate to that.
Mhm.
So that is a video that I really like, and also because my best friend, he had a really good reaction to that video, and that made me
Yeah.
happy. So
And I guess part of the humor in that is just like seeing what else is gonna happen, like what other ridiculous thing is gonna be said. Like,
yeah,
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 like
exactly, exactly.
yeah, that one. I love that one. That one was a lot of fun. So I guess just one last question before a very quick lightning round of questions. Just I wanted to ask you. I noticed that some of your content also explores intergenerational differences, right? From what I've seen, it's particularly between millennials and Gen Z, and between like millennials and their parents, or something like that, right? So, what are some of your sources of inspiration in this kind of content? Do you find it interesting to explore like how these different generational differences appear, like it both in your cultural identity and in others as well?
Ooh, yeah. Memes,
Memes,
memes. I get a lot of inspiration from memes.
right? Yeah.
Memes or the news. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Usually when the news are like, because millennials,
Millennials ruined this
yeah,
or
or like
whatever.
because of avocado on toast, they cannot buy a house now and it's their fault.
Right.
And we're like, guys, come on, like, Jesus, give us a break.
If they didn't buy Starbucks every
Yeah,
day or something like
exactly.
that.
Like, oh god, we're like the little piece of joy that we have, that is that flat white and
Yeah.
that avocado toast. Just let us have
Yeah.
it for 1 second.
Yeah.
But I try to be very lighthearted about these things, because it can sometimes it can make you feel a little bit like, oh, we're screwed. You know, so like, compared to our parents' generation, it's like, oh, we're screwed. Damn, climate change, housing crisis, everything is expensive. It's like all of that. So I try to make very lighthearted videos about it. Yeah, people, something that people can relate to, that is not too sad. You know, because it can get quite sad and depressing when we're talking about these things. So, and it's just quite funny as well, because everyone knows someone that is like a baby boomer in their. Everyone knows a baby boomer or a Gen X or a millennial or a Gen Z, and it's so interesting to see how these different generations, they perceive the world, or how they go around doing things, and I think those videos do really well. um do you see that a lot, like how different generations around you, they perceive the world very differently?
So we're just gonna end things with a very quick lightning round. Just four questions. Uh, First one: if you could hang out with any action movie or cartoon character, who would it be?
Oh, damn, that's a character or actor?
From with a character from a movie or a TV show.
I want to say Shang-Chi.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so next one. What's your favorite snack slash street food from Japan, Brazil, and the UK?
Okay, Japan. I really like takoyaki, which is like this little like dough balls with octopus inside.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love those.
Awesome.
From Brazil, I really like pastel, which is like
Oh,
how do I explain that? It's like a pasty, like a fried pasty,
right.
rectangular shape.
Yeah, yeah.
And from the UK, street food, I want to say curry, but
Okay,
it's not
yeah.
really British. So fish and chips, fish and chips. Yeah, I
All
do like
right.
fish and chips. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. And then which one do you prefer, British football or Brazilian futebol?
Ooh, that's a good question. I follow more British football
Okay.
nowadays because I live here,
Right, of
So
course.
it's yeah. But when it comes to the World Cup, then it's Brazil, of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. And finally, what's a place that what's a place that you'd love to travel to and you haven't gone to yet? That you'd love to travel to. Yeah.
Oh, China.
Okay.
China. Yeah, yeah. I think China is a very interesting country, and I have met a lot of people from there, and they were all really nice. So I would love to go one day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So so let's just finish by I wanted to ask you if there's anything else that you'd like to share that we may have missed, or something you're working on perhaps, or something else, and just if you can let us know where we can find you on
Yeah,
social
no,
media.
I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for having
Of
me.
course.
You can go check my pages on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. I'm trying YouTube Shorts. It's hard,
Okay.
but it's just Kenzo Mizumoto and all of them. So it's feel
Awesome.
free to check them out. And thank you so much for having me. That was great.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. It was a lot of fun to talk to Kenzo, and I felt that we could keep going for much longer. I loved his stories about visiting Japan and embracing his identity, as well as his method for producing and editing videos. As an editor myself, I will certainly be picking up a couple of tips from him. You can follow Kenzo on Instagram and TikTok at Kenzo Mizumoto, so make sure to check out his videos. Remember, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Ochenta Podcasts and on TikTok at Studio Ochenta. You can also watch this season's interviews and more of our shows on our YouTube channel at Ochenta Podcasts. Thanks for listening.